channel. So today's video is going to be the palette tag number 2. I never did the original palette tag because I wasn't really on YouTube or watching YouTube videos when the original palette tag came out. I looked at the questions and I found this one a little bit more interesting. Like I said during my blush tag, I really wanted to start incorporating a little bit more makeup into my channel, and I find that tags are kind of a fun way to do that. I don't really own that much makeup in comparison to a lot of beauty bloggers. I'm not a beauty blogger, I just really like makeup. I've only been wearing makeup for about a year. I actually purchased my first palette last July for my honeymoon. A lot of the palettes that I've purchased were because I really researched the palette or listened to recommendations, watched a lot of YouTube videos. I watched a lot of tag videos, so that's kind of another reason why I wanted to start incorporating makeup. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are like me and are still new to makeup and are really heavily basing their decisions based on other people's recommendations or reviews. I like to purchase products only if they've been really reviewed on YouTube or other sources, because I don't know much about makeup, so I'm not really going to be able to go and just look at a palette or just based on swatches in store and tell if it's going to be a good palette. I prefer when a product has already been tested. But anyways, I'm kind of getting off topic. I don't really have anybody in particular to tag for this palette tag. I know there's a lot of people that have already done it. This tag is, I want to say, a couple months old, maybe even started last year, but I'm not quite sure when it started. I'll link all the questions down below in the description box. If you guys do the tag, please let me know. I'd love to watch your videos. I love watching tags. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I have all the questions right here, so please excuse me if I look down on the paper. So the very first question is eyeliner, brush, or nothing? I actually said nothing with this because the only brush I've ever gotten in any palette that I liked is from the Naked palette, and it's this dual-ended brush, and it's not really like an all-purpose brush. It's pretty much just a brush to apply shadow on the lid, and then this brush right here is for a little bit more precision application. I don't really use it for anything else. I don't really use it for blending or anything else, but I still really like this brush. I really like this brush, especially for applying some of those chunkier glitters that Urban Decay is known for. And also I like this brush for my ColourPop shadows. It really, really picks up the ColourPop shadows well. But this is the only brush that I've liked in any palette. I've also gotten eyeliners in palettes, and I don't really like the eyeliners that come in most palettes. So for that reason, I prefer nothing. You can either use that space to add an extra eyeshadow in or just make the palette smaller, because I really hate bulky and chunky eyeshadow palettes. So question number 2 is name a palette you've hit pan on, and I actually don't have any palettes that I've hit pan on. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, the very first eyeshadow palette that I purchased was in July of last year, so I haven't really had a chance to hit pan on any eyeshadow. I pretty much only used that eyeshadow palette for 6 months until I started purchasing newer eyeshadow palettes, so most of these eyeshadow palettes have only been in my collection for about 6 months or less. Question number 3 is your favorite Naked palette, and I'm going to say the Naked Basics. And a lot of people don't actually like this eyeshadow palette, and I can see why if you have a big collection, but I really like this eyeshadow palette because you can use it in conjunction with any other palette. So I have a few like Urban Decay smaller palettes with some crazy colors in it, or maybe even my ColourPop shadows, and I like to use this palette to kind of complete the look because it has really nice transition colors, blending colors, and even this black you can use as an eyeliner. You can make a complete look just using this palette, or you can take like a glitter, like these NYX glitters or a ColourPop shadow, and put it all over the lid and just use this for everything else. That's the reason I really like the Naked palette. I've actually traveled with this palette because when I'm on vacation or when I travel, I don't really like to do too crazy of an eye look, and this just has all the basic colors to make like the perfect natural everyday eye. Question number 4 is your favorite holiday limited edition palette, and I actually have 2 answers for this. The first one is blush palettes, because blush palettes are still technically palettes. I really like holiday and limited edition blush palettes because you do get a good bang for your buck. Like this is the Tartiest Clay. This is the Tartiest blush palette. Another blush palette that I really like are the NARS palettes. Like NARS comes out with, I think it's like the NARS Narcissus palettes. And this is just the one that I happen to have. And I really like blush palettes because you get a good variety of colors, and normally you save a little bit of money versus buying each blush individually. And lastly, they're also really good to travel with. So I really, really like holiday or limited edition blush palettes. I don't really care for a lot of the eyeshadow palettes that come out for the holidays. They're normally really big and bulky and chunky. Like they try and get creative with them and make them all kind of festive looking. A lot of the times it's kind of like a kit that comes out for the holidays. Something I'm thinking of in particular is like the Too Faced holiday palettes. They kind of come in this crazy packaging, and it has like multiple parts to the set. And I just don't like having like multiple little pieces that I have to put together, or normally the package is just too bulky. It's pretty to display, but I don't really have a lot of space in my office for that, or my beauty room for that. So for that reason, I really don't like a lot of holiday limited edition palettes unless it actually comes in like a standard palette form. With respect to limited edition palettes, not just holiday palettes, I haven't really been around long enough to get my hands on some of these limited edition palettes that have been around for years. So my favorite limited edition palette is actually pretty recent, and it's the Too Faced Peanut Butter and Jelly palette. I'm sure you guys have seen this. I absolutely love this palette. I really like the warmth of this palette. I tend to like warm eyeshadows a lot better. I think they look a lot better with my complexion. I like that it smells like peanut butter, but it's also a really, in my opinion, a really easy to use palette. I really like these smaller 9-pan palettes from Too Faced, and I think they're really, really easy to work with. They even come with little guides that show you different looks that you can do with this palette. I am not an eyeshadow expert. I'm not a makeup artist. I don't really know much about makeup, and I found this palette really easy to use, and I could make some really nice everyday looks with this, and I could also be a little bit adventurous and try some bolder looks with this palette. So this is my favorite limited edition palette. Question number 5 is name a palette you would repurchase or wish you had a backup of. And this is going to be my Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette. This is actually my very, very first palette. This is the palette that I purchased in July of last year. And I did a lot of research. I really put a lot of thought when it came to purchasing this product, because when I first got into makeup, $50 was really, really expensive for a makeup item, especially because I'd never purchased any makeup items prior to that. Only thing I had really ever seen were drugstore prices. I had never even contemplated getting a high-end makeup product. But the more research I did, the more videos I watched, I realized that it was just better to get a really good mid or high-end eyeshadow palette than buy a whole bunch of smaller drugstore palettes, which eventually would have equaled the price tag that I paid for this one eyeshadow palette. At the time, there weren't really that many good eyeshadow palettes in the drugstore. I had tried like the Maybelline, the Maybelline Nudes, I think is what they were, and I really didn't like the way those eyeshadows performed. So I went ahead and splurged on this one, and I do not regret it. This is hands down my favorite palette. It is a warm eyeshadow palette, and I do like warmer looks. Like I said, I feel like it looks a little bit better with my complexion. I love that it smells like chocolate. I love how sturdy the packaging is. If I travel with any palettes, it's either my Naked Basics or the Chocolate Bar palette, or both, because it's such sturdy packaging. It's not a limited edition palette, so I'm glad it's going to be around for a while, but if they decide to discontinue this, I'm definitely going to buy a backup of this palette. Name a shade. Question number 6 is name a shade you wish were sold individually, and that's actually Salted Caramel, and it's in the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette, and that's this color right here. I really, really, really love this color as a transition color, and this color may not show up very well on my skin because it is very well on my skin because it is so close to my skin color, but that's the reason why I like it as a transition color. It really does help bring my entire eye look together. And I wish they sold it individually because I would buy just a single version of this eyeshadow. Question number 7 is a wild card question, and I had to pick a question from the original palette tag. So I chose the biggest regret. And my original biggest regret was the Maybelline Nude palette, but I don't have that palette anymore. So I chose the Balm's Nude Dude palette. And this palette, oh, there goes the brush. This palette really is my biggest regret. The colors are really pretty, but I just don't find myself gravitating towards this palette, and they just kind of all blend together. I don't know, every time I've tried to create an eye look with this palette, it just doesn't come out right. Again, I'm not a makeup artist, but I feel that I kind of understand how to at least put a basic look together, and I've tried just doing basic looks with this palette, and even my basic looks they're just a little off. I don't know. There's something about this palette that I don't quite like. I do pull it out and try and use it every so often, but every single time I use it, I'm just not happy with the look that comes out. I end up having to go and grab another palette to try and fix whatever it is that came out of this palette. So for that reason, this is my biggest regret. Thankfully, I did purchase this 50% off during Black Friday. I would have been a little mad paying full price for this palette, but you know, it is what it is. And the last question is, name a palette that you would recommend to a friend. And I actually have 2 palettes that I would recommend to friends. The first palette is the e.l.f. Mad for Matte palette. And I really like this palette. This is kind of similar to the Naked Basics, but you have a lot more range of colors in here. And these are all matte. And I'm really impressed with the pigmentation of these shadows. If this palette had been around when I was originally looking for an eyeshadow palette to purchase, I probably would have purchased this instead of the chocolate bar, I'm not gonna lie. But unfortunately it wasn't. This came out after I had purchased my chocolate bar, and you can create lots of eye looks with this palette, in my opinion. It has a lot of warm tones, but it also has a lot of warm tones, but it also has these cool tones down here. So you can pretty much use this in conjunction with any other palette, in conjunction with a single eyeshadow, or on its own. So that's the reason why I would recommend this over the chocolate bar. I would recommend this, honestly, over the chocolate bar to any one of my friends, especially to someone who's a beginner. I think this is a really great palette, and it's inexpensive. The second eyeshadow palette I would recommend to a friend is from Too Faced, and it's the Too Faced Natural Eyes palette. I really like this palette. I would recommend this palette for somebody who really does like warm eyeshadow palettes, but also doesn't like just all matte eyeshadows. So one thing I really like about this palette is that it has both shimmers and mattes in here. It has everything you need to make an everyday look, a little bit more of a bolder, like nighttime look, or just kind of a fun and flirty look. Like I said before, I really like the Too Faced 9-pan eyeshadow palettes. They really do put a lot of thought into this palette, and it makes it really easy for somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing. But you can also play around with these shadows and make something different than just using the 3 eyeshadows that come in a specific row for a specific look. But you don't have to stick with what they recommend. You can use this palette however you like it. I like the quality of these shadows. I think it has a good price point. It's around like $36, I want to say. It's a sturdy packaging. I really like this. This is definitely something that I would recommend to a friend. So that's it for my palette tag. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy these types of videos. Let me know if you guys would like me to do the very first tag. And also let me know if you guys decided to do the tag on your own, so I can go to your channel and watch it. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to get future notifications every time I post a video. I am going to be trying to post about 2 to 3 times a week during the summertime. Again, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.